I'm ready to take lots of notes and share them away.
That's great. That's great. I read a Guardian notes. I'm going to Guardian somebody else after this session.
Wow, there you go.
So let's see. Okay.
Okay, so we should see everyone coming in to the session. Let me see what I've got here.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, hello.
Hello,
I see some familiar faces.
yes.
Hi, Isabel.
Okay, I think we might just get started. Thank you all. We're going to have people that pop in throughout the session today. We know that for some of you in the European continent, you are on your way to work or probably lunch, actually, probably a lovely long lunch in the European summer. And for most of us in Asia Pacific, it will be close to dinner or just after dinner time. So my name is Erin Pinto, and I'm a catalyst with the League of Entrepreneurs in Melbourne, Australia. So we're here this afternoon, this evening in Melbourne time, or morning, wherever you are, to take part in a discussion around poverty. But first of all, before we get started, it'd be really great if in the chat function you could just write where your name and where you're from. You're going to see all these these messages start popping up, everyone.
Wow. From Kenya. Hi, Isabel. Justin.
Fabulous. Lovely, lovely, lovely morning in Spain, I bet. So before we kick off, and while others join, I just want to share with you the League's way of being for this session. So what you'll find throughout this session is that in the chat function, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions or provide feedback along the way. We'd love to see your faces, so if you can keep your cameras on, that would be fabulous. Before I continue, I think I'd like to just pause for a minute. I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional custodians of this land in which I'm presenting from today. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians present. I would also like to extend this acknowledgement to those traditional custodians of the lands in which our participants come from. It is great to see so many people from across this globe, across this, to this session. So I think we might get started. I've got a little quiz for you. Let me see if this works. We're going to use an external link called Menti. And there's a question that I am going to ask you to answer. And that is, are you an entrepreneur? Are you an entrepreneur? Or are you just a super curious human being? I'll give you a minute to follow the link. Let me know if you've if you have any issues. I'll let that keep going while we move on. We've got a squiggle on there as well. Today's a really timely discussion around decent jobs. You may have noticed the United Nations announced that they estimate an additional 49 million people will experience extreme poverty post-COVID-19. And this is a really good segue to introduce my good friend and co-catalyst, the newest one in Singapore, Lu Yan. Lu Yan has a list of attributes and talents, but I'm going to sum them up in a couple. She's a director at the base of the Pyramid Hub. She's a social entrepreneur, a change maker. Lu Yan, we've been talking about this for quite some time. We had a little coffee together in a cafe in Singapore 6 months ago, definitely pre-COVID, and we talked about all of these topics, which we could have spent hours on. I guess I think what I wanted to understand a little bit more for you is what energizes you about these conversations.
I think the whole idea of the decent job session really comes from my frustration of seeing the impact of COVID-19 on the foreign workers here in Singapore. And when we actually saw the numbers, and it's really astonishing. It was shocking every day. And when we reached the peak of 1,000 workers per day affected, and when the condition of the dormitory was reviewed and exposed, I was utterly astonished. I was feeling really, really sad, and I feel like I want to do something. So I spoke to Jack. I said, can we do something? Can we do something? And then Jack, actually, one of our panelists here, he actually wrote an article about why we need so many cheap laborers here in Singapore. So what is the system? The problem in the system. So that actually gave me an opportunity to really think about what actually means to have a decent job. Right now we're hit so much by the COVID-19, but the people who are on this very much marginalized society and very low income, hard labor job people, they're hit the most, and they're losing their livelihood. And these poor workers, and they are actually right now struggling so much, and we don't even know if they actually get paid for this lockdown period. So that I think it's that kind of frustration and anxiety and anger, and it becomes a kind of initial originality of this idea of having this conversation to start doing something.
Well, before we get into the deep and fun conversations with our panelists this evening, Lu Yan and I would like to hear from you. And what we would like to know is, what do you think decent jobs means for you? So I'm going to post the link in the chat function again. And so just, you've got a couple of options or entries actually to put in there. This is really a good way to help our panelists understand what your thoughts are to help deepen the discussion this evening. So I think with that, as this keeps going, Lu Yan, I am going to pass it over to you to have this fabulous conversation, lead this conversation with our amazing panelists tonight.
Great, thank you so much, Erin. before we start, I just want to have a bit of introduction about the organization I work for in Singapore. I work with Jack and on the business incubator, a business accelerator established in Singapore called the Base of Pyramid Hub. So it's called POP Hub. It was established really with the vision to design business to end global poverty. So we wanted to create a kind of efficient marketplace that really for community at the base of pyramids by supporting business opportunity, entrepreneurship, and connecting partner and resources to build ecosystem to support this type of growth. Can you click the next slides? So we actually saw the problem of the charity model that to give free food and free stuff is actually harming a marketplace, not really benefiting the marketplace. We believe that by giving people a means to access to business ideas and finance and different kind of opportunity to help themselves get out of poverty and to use the income they generate to purchase education, electricity, water, and all kinds of means to for their own dignity of life is a way to go. So that's a way we actually establish a hub, basically to really develop a very broad-based incentive model for all the stakeholders in our ecosystem to collaborate. So next slide, please. So we, at Singapore, we have a building that is called SDG Center. We plan to open it actually somewhere in June, but now because of COVID-19, we delayed opening. It's gonna serve as a co-working space, also exhibition center, and a marketplace for all the entrepreneurs who are trying to build that type of business, and but also for corporates to come together and cross-sell, cooperate, and network. And we're also working very closely with Catalyst 2030, who is a platform connecting School Fellow, Ashoka Fellow, and a world of 5,000 social entrepreneurs worldwide to really scale some of the proven solution to different part of the world and really scale the solution to reach to its maximum potential. So this is what we do at BOP Hub. So we focus on SDG number 8, which is about decent work and creating livelihoods. So this whole conversation we're creating here with this partnership with the legal entrepreneur is really just a start. And because we do see the strengths of leaders who are working in corporate environments to generate some change from within the organization and to really connect with our partners and do this together. So without further ado, I wanted to just open a space to our 4 amazing panelists. I will not go through their bio, otherwise I will spend the rest of today's session reading their bio, because then all of them have achieved so much in their life. So I will just start with the conversation. And so today is a very, very informal fireside chat, and we encourage everybody just to, ask questions in the chat box, and we'll stop every 1 or 2 questions to pick a few questions from you guys. All right. So so I wanted to start with the first question, which is like your definition about what is your definition of decent work? What does it mean to you? And why does it even matter? I'm going to ask everybody in the panel to share a personal story and to answer this question. Who wants to start? Yep, Nilan. Okay, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I always go first, wherever I am. I don't know why, I just jump forward. Okay, so great. I think a lot of very interesting definitions, words came out from the audience. It's a very incisive audience. I think key about decent work is reliability. All of us cannot plan our lives, the education of our loved ones, the care of our older ones in our families, unless we have some view of reliability, right? So reliability and an outlet for creativity. I think creativity is a very, very, very human need. So I think just reliability, just working on a mundane operation day in and day out is not it's not the most dignified thing. So dignity was a very prominent word that emerged. So I think as human beings, some form of expression of who we are has always been critical, and our traditional societies allowed for that. They allowed for a lot of self-expression, which industrialization is kind of tamped down. That's it. So I'll make it very simple, because I mean, we need to give everyone else a chance to speak. And a key thing about decent work is that it cannot be exclusive. Meaning, I want decent work, and that doesn't mean that the person opposite me also doesn't get decent work. You know, so the whole concept of having exclusive decent work has to go. Decent work has to be inclusive. It has to be with as many people as is possible. So that's, I think for me, these would be the top 4 things. And do you want me to say the personal thing now, or I can do it later?
Yeah, maybe we can actually come to that later. And Jose Maria, you work a lot with the youth, and what I mean, I'm keen to hear what your definition of decent work is, but also I'm very keen to hear what you think the youth you work with think. A millennial, probably even like younger, like 20, not even 20 something. What do they think of decent work is?
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here. So for me, I think that it's very connected with Nilan. So I think that jobs in general jobs have the capacity of dignifying human. So actually, I think in 2 ways. In one way, it's an enabler of opening the possibility of self-realization. So I think maybe I would like to connect, because when you are mentioning youth, in youth, we see clearly that they have the opportunity of actually discovering what is the element that make them unique. Maybe what Sir Ken Robinson will be talking about, elements, something that we are passionate about and something that we are good about. So actually, job is a way, first on education, and then jobs is a way of actually realizing this. We usually use a metaphor of a seed. So if you have a seed inside, the job is a place to actually be in the watering and the sun for this to flourish in one way. And then in the other side, I think the job is a place for actually, is a door opener for satisfying needs. So in that sense, it's a door opener to enabling that you can build your life. You can build your basic needs, both if we see from the Maslow perspective, but also I would love to see more from Max Neff. So more like a circle of needs that you can be covering. And the job, as we invest a lot of time, and part of our life's huge amount is the place where actually our needs can be flourishing. Once our needs are somehow, is a door opener for needs to be satisfied, then our lives outside work can be also satisfied. So on the whole region, our community can be flourishing. So I think in that sense, this is the 2 ways that for me is on one side, it's a place for realizing our self potential. And in the other side, it's a place to actually accessing the needs that will enable us to be as human, opening and build our lives surrounded them. And maybe these are the 2 drives that connects. I think when you mention now youth, this more Greta generation, now when we talk about the generation of people, the age of Greta, I think they are very authentic and very unique, you know. So maybe comparing with our generation, we are much more accepting the rules or doing something just for the sake, in the case of education, for the sake of having a degree, in the case of job, just for the sake of having a salary. This generation is much more unique, you know. It's much more authentic. If they really connect, it is real and it's authentic, they connect and they play amazingly. If it is fake, it's just, it's too much structure, I think they disconnect and immediately they disconnect. So maybe these first thoughts. And in my case, maybe to the personal story, I was very lucky when I was 25 years old to actually, as part of my PhD, analyze factories all around the world. I was analyzing Mondragon factories and living all around the world, really to try to understand what what is the reality of the possibilities of jobs to enabling this as to make human. And what I learned from that is that for sure the realities, if we compare factories in China with factories in Turkey or in Spain or in South America, so the context is very different in many different ways. The wages is very different, the structure is very different. But at the end of the day, I believe that is the same goal, no? That being working in a companies, and in a sense we connect with entrepreneurs' mindset, could be clearly a place of dignifying humans, and I think that's the great potential of companies, and that's the reason we should really address how to really allow this to happen. It doesn't matter the context. Is it possible everywhere?
Thank you, Josemarie. Giselle, I'm going to actually put Jack the last because he said as a toilet guy, he wants to go last.
As a toilet guy, he is essential to all of us. So it doesn't matter where he goes, he's number one for us. Thank you so much. And as Erin mentioned at the beginning, an acknowledgement of country, I also am sitting here in Australia, having just come off what we call our National Reconciliation Week, where we put our hearts, minds and actions to the reconciliation with our Indigenous people and our Australians. So I do need to acknowledge that. I think what's really timely is that the theme for last week was in this together. And it's such a salient theme that covers the work that we're doing in this space. In particular, when I think of our Indigenous people, that they were not only our first engineers, our first artists, our first astronomers, our first scientists, they were indeed our first entrepreneurs. So I think it's quite timely. Following listening to the two panelists before, when I think about the words decent and jobs, first of all, when I think about what we mean by job, it's about getting something done, and often that is getting something done and having some type of payment or benefit. By whom? And it is usually an organisation of some type, someone that is steering that. So when I think about decent jobs, I actually start flipping it the other way and thinking about what is a decent culture of an organisation to ensure that a decent job is enabled, or the person can do a decent job. So I'm really focused on building cultures that enable decent jobs. And so by that, when I think about culture, it is this invisible thing that you often can't label. You know it's there, you know it can be steered, but it's something that is about how things get done. And so going to Neelam and our colleagues, in particular, the word puzzle that came up before, what are the basic minimum things that ensure that a culture is a place that you don't only thrive as an individual doing a job, but you feel that it's a place that as an employer, it's something that you know that you can build the capacity of your individuals. So with that as a bare minimum, for me, a decent job is a place that is about safety, and I'm talking about not only physical safety, but psychological safety. It's about integrity. It's about what you say is what you mean, and what you mean is what you do. It's about teamwork, that most of the challenges that we've seen through COVID will not be solved by one individual, one scientist, one banker alone. It's about the effort of intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs. And there was even someone who self-identified before as an ex-intrapreneur. I'm very curious who you are, and I'm really curious what you now are. Oh, it's you, Rachel. G'day. Dear friend. You know, it's about, so what I've said, safety, integrity, teamwork, diversity. I think they're kind of the aspects for how we're going to ensure that we have decent jobs. But at the end of the day, a decent job will not be unless there is a decent culture around to ensure that that job, that thing, is enabled and is allowed. So that's just I thought I'd take a different aspect rather than just say, I agree with what my colleagues have said. Otherwise, we'll end up having a very one swim lane conversation.
Yeah, I absolutely encourage you to disagree with each other. We actually agree.
Oh, not disagree, just take it, yeah.
So, okay, Jack, it's your turn. You have about 2 minutes to tell a story, because yeah, I know you're an amazing storyteller.
So basically, I'll just take another angle again. Today, if you look at the whole world, you have a concentration of wealth. That means a few people owns like half of the world. And these people have so much money, they just don't have time to spend it. It would be, they need another 5 lives to spend those money. And they don't know why they'll have it. It's just that the design of the game is that we will celebrate you if you take all our money away. Take all our money and you are the winner. So there's also a concentration of industry because big companies are buying small companies. So if you are a startup, after a while, you will be sold. So companies are again owned by very few people. And these few people also somehow is almost the same as the few people who owns all the money. So all the industry and all the money are owned by a few people. And yet 4 billion people in the world, called the base of the pyramid, earn less than $8 a day. So these $8 and below, depending on where you are, largely you cannot afford decency. You cannot afford electricity, Wi-Fi, water, sanitation, nutrition, education, healthcare, logistics. You don't have all these things. So why is it that the world is designed this way? Obviously, it is a wrong design. And now with COVID, after that, we have to rethink that we have to redesign the world. And somebody asked, where are the new jobs? I will tell you, the new jobs is in the 4 billion new customer that nobody ever wanted to serve before COVID. So why would they want to serve after COVID? It's because the middle class customer are now also poor. They will not spend so much money. And with all your industrial capacity, you need to find new customers. So the poor people would be your new customer. Now, the next question is, how are we going to find money? How are they going to find money to buy stuff? Now, money is not always in your pocket first. It's always in your mind and in your hands and in your legs. If you can unlock the spirit of enterprise and the good work ethics of people, then they get out of poverty. So how Singapore get out of poverty? I grew up in 1957, it was very poor. $500 US a year per capita income, same as Kenya. 25 years later, it became a first world country because we don't accept donation, we don't accept foreign aid, we accept foreign investment. And this is the future after COVID, is invest in the poor, find new customers. And I think we can discuss this later, but it's very similar to what Neelam says. Yeah, let's go and solve this problem.
Okay, Jack, fascinating answer, but didn't really answer my question. So actually you answered my second question. So I'm gonna actually skip you for the second round. And so, yeah.
Do you mean he can read your mind? Do you mean that Jack reads your mind? Like, this is getting really freaky. He's already read your second question. Goodness me.
I know, right? So, okay, second question, COVID-19. That's why we're here, right? So today I read this report. I was jaw-dropping, a report by International Labour Organization. It says the COVID-19 impact could cause equivalent of nearly 200 million job loss worldwide. That is half of the global workforce. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, I read it several times, and this job includes what Jack says. You know, there are a lot of jobs that are actually middle class jobs. So the people who used to live in a pretty good life, they all of a sudden find themselves fall into poverty. So of course, we're also talking about a lot of people who are really kind of will have really no means to support their family, pretty much next day, and no income, no security, no future. So with that kind of very, very scary situation, and leave alone, there are more than almost like 500 million small and medium enterprises are heavily disrupted, and they are going to actually, if they go bankrupt, and there will be more people losing their job. So with this very scary future we're facing, I wanted to ask you and reflect on the work you're doing. And I wanted to actually ask this question to Nilan, because Nilan, you work with people in the rural area, artisan, mostly women, and to help them to really, many of them actually, this is their first job and the first time they leave their house and to earn a living to support their family, right? So how does this whole thing of COVID-19 impact these women and their family? And what kind of narrative, how does it really change your narrative? How do you see this moving forward with the work you do? And Nilan, you need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
So the numbers you shared are horrific and they're scary, right? So all of us are little pebbles wherever we are, trying to do whatever we are. So we have been saying now for a few years, many years, that 300 years ago, see, industrialization is 300 years old. That's it. It's not very old. It's a minor blip in the global timeline. Western countries adopted industrialization because they had aging populations, because the capitalist model wanted to make a lot of money. The capital markets realized that machines, mechanizations would create wealth. Now we've been there, we've done that, right? We've been there, we've done that. We've discovered that all those processes were leading to the wealth being concentrated in 1% of the people. I mean, do you know how difficult it is for Bill Gates to get rid of his money? It's not easy. He's sweating doing it. India's richest man, Mr. Azim Premji, he's completely powerless. I mean, his teams could be hearing me. He could run a business, he could make money, but to have a certain logic to give away the money, he's not able to do it. So these are all old structures which are not relevant now. And they're not relevant now, keeping one thing in mind: climate change. Everyone underestimates. I mean, if we all are worried about COVID, let's not worry too much about COVID. You've lost 500,000 jobs. You see what climate change is going to do by 2050. We are already past 3 degrees. We now have to sequester carbon. We have to suck it out. It's not enough to stop generating carbon. We have to suck it out now. So by 2050, Bombay, Singapore are all going to be underwater. They're not going to exist. So this is a very, very big call out. It's going to be very tough on all of us. But I'm glad it happened today, because something much worse is going to happen later. Much, much, much worse. And therefore, I'm the eternal optimist. And I believe that it's voices like ours, which will have to be heard, which are questioning the existing structures. So right now, what we do is we call our sector regenerative economy. So it's how do you grow global regenerative economies, right? Which are good for the planet, good for people, good for society. This is what we have to talk. And we are calling ministers, we have to speak about this. And which is where, again, we are saying that 18% of global best economies, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, they are co-op economies. 18% of New Zealand is a co-op economy, right? So why are we not looking at these successful things? Less than 1% of Indian economy is a cooperative economy. Africa, I don't know how much of Africa is a co-op economy. So people like us who have to pull billions out of poverty, If we are going to take the Chinese route, which is massive factories, more carbon emissions, we're not going to do anyone any good. So both India and Africa and large chunks of South Asia, it is our responsibility to look at more regenerative growth, right? For our sakes, we can't keep on doing the blame game. The West is actually emitting maximum carbon. They have to do something about it. No, we can't wait for them to do something about it because we are going to suffer more than them. We are going underwater. They are not going underwater, right? Mm. So it's up to us to look and talk about. And I think the essential things of regenerative economies is co-ops, build more distributed wealth based organizations, right? Don't call them co-ops. We are learning a lot from Jose Murray. They can be private companies, but let them have more distributed ownership. Let them be professionally managed, right? Then look at more distributed manufacturing. Why do we have to migrate? Taking Singapore as a perfect example. Why are you having so much migrant labor in the first place? You've got to look at your economies which can function without so much migrant labor. Let labor, India today, we have millions and millions of people walking back to their villages because they were in the informal sector. The day of the lockdown, they were all thrown out, right? So now we are telling the government that do production at village level, right? Do more distributed manufacturing. That doesn't mean it is 300-year-old manufacturing. No, use lean production practices, use Six Sigma, use digital tools, but distribute your manufacturing. Don't migrate these poor people back to cities, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all of us have to just keep looking and pushing new models. And therefore, the big enabler is digital technology, right? That's the new thing. How are we different today than we were 300 years ago? These models of migrating people to manufacturing are 300 years ago. Today, let them be where they are, give them digital tools, give them mobile phones, give them decentralized manufacturing, and everything is possible. Yeah, they can have regular work, they can have social security, they can have health insurance. There are new ways where everything can be done, right? Because today you have digital, which you didn't then.
Yeah, this is a perfect end notes, and I'm going to actually direct this question to Jaso, because when I asked all the panelists to write one line, what they believe the future of decent work is, and Jaso came back with the line, it's not about digital skill. Can you tell us more about this? What do you think? That's some kind of question that wasn't really urgent before, that is becoming all of a sudden very urgent now. What wasn't very clear before is becoming very clear now in the corporate kind of structure.
Sure, no problems at all. Unlike some of the other panelists, I actually work for a global organization. We are employee owned, 12,000 people. We are signed up to the SDG goals. I have a global team which is over 50% based with people that are probably half my age. And through COVID, if anything, one of the positives has been it actually doesn't matter where my team sit, whether they're in Chicago, Europe, Asia or Australia. We've been able to come together as a team because the digital part has meant we can. What I meant in relation to, it's not necessarily digital skills or digital literacy. Digital literacy is absolutely key because it's going to be what helps us have a level playing field. I suppose what I was thinking about was, because I have a global role that is focused on digital innovation, a lot of people think that my job is about selling digital stuff and working on digital solutions. And, to be truly honest, I don't care who the vendor is or what the platform is or what the provider is. I'm about the impact of what, similar to what Neelam said, that what the digital enablement does to ensure that we provide a value to the community or the client that we serve. It's not the technology part, it's actually the human part. It's about how they experience or how they're impacted. So with that in mind, I'm less about, besides the literacy and accessibility perspective, and yes, I sit in Melbourne, a very affluent place, and have worked in India and have worked and studied in Southeast Asia. So I'm very conscious of some of the different diversity aspects there. But, you know, I also sit in a country where, as we said, our Indigenous Australians or some of our rural areas have a real disproportionate imbalance to the opportunities that I have in my city. And I'm absolutely aware that we need to, I call it the reverse Death Star. If you know what the Death Star was, it's like this magnet that sucks talent and opportunities to a city. I want to reverse that. I want teams to be able to sit in rural Australia and be able to have the same opportunities that I have in the city. So with that in mind, what I do believe is one of the biggest skills, and the things someone put into the chat about jobs, I know what as I hire, it's less about the digital skill, it's more about these human skills. I hate the word soft skills. I will never use it except to say I hate the word soft skills. I call them entrepreneurial skills. I call them business skills. World Economic Forum talks about it. Future for Foundation for Young Australians talks about it. These are the skills that are actually not technical, but are the things that we're going to need to ensure that things we've talked about as a panel. So these are about, as business people, not being shy to talk about empathy. Or why can't I be a business person that is in a for-profit or for purpose and for-profit organization, but actually be an empathetic leader? So empathy, curiosity, human-centered design, those type of entrepreneurial skills that are often diminished or are seen as a nice to have. So they're the skills that seem less digital, they seem more human, but I truly, truly believe they're going to be the things that will shine. Even as we work in remote working space, they're the things that are coming out and are going to be the things that actually, you know, bring us back to the basics of how do we solve some of these problems together? How do we go not solutions first? How do we go problem first? You know, how do we go human centered first? So it's that type of angle that I'm extremely passionate about. And Janet, who's on the call as an entrepreneur, will know that, you know, we don't necessarily want everyone to leave big business and go and start NGOs and not-for-profits or for-purpose organizations. Of course, we want some, but we also want people with this value set to stay inside big business and rattle the cage and ensure that we can actually make impact from inside, because we actually need different types of organizations inside society to make that impact. So it's not about, hey, let us all resign and all suddenly give up our day jobs. I have a startup myself, but my day job is inside a for-profit, for-purpose company, and I think I could potentially make more of a difference using those entrepreneurial skills that are focused on the human first angle, not the digital angle, even though my title says digital, to make that impact that supports those in those other supporting organizations.
Great, thank you, Jaisal. I'm going to actually pick a question from the audience. And Erin, can you help me to pick one question? Because of time limitation, we can only open up to one question, but we're going to actually have more time later.
Yes, I can. I think Jack's been busy typing away answering some of the questions in the chat panel. So thank you very much, Jack. There is one question from Parul, which is, and this is probably a really good question for Neelam, is your explanation of a co-op economy.
Explanation, okay.
Yeah, I think this is some question probably equally important for our panelist, Jose Marie, because he's giving a course of co-op.
And we are learning a lot from it. So Jack has really pushed the introduction between us and Jose Marie, and I'm sure he will have a lot to say, so I'm just going to keep it really short. So basically, co-op economy is, India has a cooperative called Amul. It's at $5 billion in revenue, and it is owned by 3 million farmers, right? And so it's managed by professionals, and it's created a lot of wealth for rural Indian farmers, right? So India is milk positive. India is the largest producer of milk in the world, blah, 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 all thanks to this. So it's a kind of a systems change approach. Jose Marie will share a lot also. But basically, we believe that in many areas, we've really got to look at new models. And it's like he said, they can be companies, they can be professional, but who owns all this? I mean, individual ownership and capitalist ownership structures are a little overrated. They are, I think they're pretty has-been. It's been there, done that. I think a lot of us are really questioning that. I mean, so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm following the course right now. This is our week 2. I learned so much, and I started to question capitalists and all together. And so, Jose Marie, you actually have written your PhD thesis about whole Mondragon as an industrial co-op, probably one of the most successful one in the world. Can you actually explain to us within 1 minute time and what co-op, Mondragon co-op model is all about?
I think maybe linking to what we're talking, I think that what is after is not that much the legal entity, but it's about the possibility of human-centered organization. So Mondragon, as its origin, is it possible to create a human-centered organizations? And I think it's actually connecting with the previous panelists, that's what the new era of COVID is about. How do we create human-centered companies? And then using the legal entity that will be more convenient in each case, in that sense. Maybe the great difference that, the great difference I think is that we are now in an economy that the evolution is about participation. I think more than the cooperative system itself, it's about participation. We live in a digital era now that is about sharing economy. Sharing economy is a mirage because actually it's not really share. Participation is actually what dignifies humans, and participation is on information, participation on decision making, participation on ownership, and participation on results. I believe that the new era where we are moving is enabling human beings to be decision maker and to participate in this process. Those companies, it doesn't matter which is the legal entity frame, and those solutions who actually will be based on this enabling participation of humans at all the levels, I think will be one of the key ingredients of success that we are coming. And then connecting what was the previous panelists were sharing, regarding the scale matters, but at the same time, when we look at the development of, I had the opportunity to be living in China for 4 or 5 years. China has been a country that has proven the world the capacity of eradicating poverty at a speed that no one has done before, but has been done in a system of really massive structures. Do we really need to see the whole world to develop in a system of massive structures? I believe not. I believe that this has worked, but also has got a huge damage. Now in China, we are in some projects in Hainan talking about how to create a true health, true wealth understanding, thinking in all the aspects of humanity. I think in that sense, maybe what Nilan was saying, yes, it is possible to create a decentralized, distributed sort of industrial development, a more place-based economy addressing the local communities that will enable in a different type of development. I think this for COVID has accelerated the limitations of a urbanization system on a very big cities, and as Nilan was saying also, when the coming of the climate change will be also in the long run a bigger limitation. But for that, what we need is actually maybe this intercooperation. So maybe Jack was putting in the dialogue, how do we enable different entities? It doesn't matter if it's social entrepreneurs, big corporates, a government, to actually play together. I think that's the new era is about, also, Jasil, you were sharing, it's about teams. How do we learn to play together? And team of teams, if we look at the society, it's not anymore about big solo players alone, fragmentation. It's about enabling a movement of people creating together, and each one at its own scale and creating one with the other. For that, I think the digital era helps a lot, not because of the of the technology itself, but yes, with the capacity of technology to be a tool for enabling a type of cooperation, a type of co-creation, a type of distributed system working at a great scale. One good example is what we are seeing with blockchain, is enabling a higher security than a totally different model. At the same time, we see how the status quo try to control. Instead of opening all the possibilities of what blockchain might be, we try to have private systems in order to control. It's very normal, no? But I think this COVID is an accelerator. It's an accelerator of change. It's an accelerator of making visible what was invisible. And I think also, few days ago, someone shared something that for me has been helping me to understand what is COVID about. He said, anything that COVID is wiping out, everything that was not sustainable. So I think if we see with this perspective, it has accelerated to see things that were not sustainable working now become more clear. And in that sense, I think it's a new opportunity of writing something new, starting more from scratch, reducing our mental models limitations in order to embrace change in that sense.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You pretty much addressed my third question, which is like, what is actually begging to be born? And Jack, I'm looking at you, and you have so much wisdom to share. And what is that like? You are also like very good at turning every crisis into opportunity. And in your lifetime, you have done it many times. How are you going to do this today, actually, with the COVID-19?
So thanks. I think that the COVID-19 narrows the gap between the rich and the poor. Because although there's a lot of people now dying of hunger in India, you will find that after COVID, the poor and the middle class has become smaller gap. What happened is that in the past, all public policy has been designed on gross national product, GDP. And the whole idea is to get the biggest GDP for the country or the state. But they forgot people when they are counting money. So what we need to do now is that public policy has to put people in the middle. If you put human being at the middle and the planet at the middle, because the planet needs to sustain so that the human being needs to continue, then you will discover suddenly that there's so much resource, so much money, and so much talent that are not being used properly. So if you imagine that every single person have multiple intelligence, but the jobs employ them only for one. And then they go home, they're very, very capable, but in the office, they're only capable for one thing. Now, what will be needed is that we open up our society such that people do not have to be extremists in their capability or their strength, but they need to be complementary. And if we put human being at the center, technology will become the servant for the human being. But if we put money in the center, technology will serve money. And so this is a wrong design. And once we design this correctly, I think we'll get everything right. And including climate change, including disease spread and whatever. What is very, very often is that 9 million people die of hunger every year. Nobody talks about it. 400,000 people die of COVID, the world gets shut down, right? And 2 million people die of diarrhea every year. Nobody talks about it. Now we want to talk about everything. And if we put human being in the middle, you will talk about everything. And the redesign has to start now.
Yeah, amazing. Irene, can we pick up another question from audience? I see there are so many comments coming up and course being shared.
There's a lot. So it's really interesting. Jen, we have a specialist, a co-op specialist in the midst. She actually grew up. Oh, let me see. I've just lost my chat. In Norway, we do have a question. Where have we got? Shaul, I hope I have. I hope I've asked that question. Is the type of economic models in Singapore?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry, there's so many questions that just...
Yeah.
Model in Singapore?
And that's what I'm looking for. So we've got a couple. comments and feedback on existing co-op model in Singapore?
So we have a co-op in Singapore called the Union. And the Union runs the supermarkets, and they run $3 billion of business. They also run the taxi company and the insurance company. So they run about the same size as Mondragon, but our population is just 5 million people. So this is a example that we created about 1 over million customers to about 1.8 million customers through these cooperatives. And I think that cooperative needs strong leadership. It needs it's like if you watch the movie called Ants, the locusts were bullying the ants because the ants were so small. But when the ants got angry, they got together and the locusts flew, right? So this is when small people come together, you can create cooperative. Cooperative can also be done without the cooperative legal structure. It can be done with the spirit of cooperative. So you can run it as a company, but you can run it where everybody has participation, has shares and whatever. So there is a lot of model we can follow, and you can, if you take the spirit of cooperative, it's about distribution of wealth, distribution of opportunities. And this should be the solution going forward after COVID.
Great. Yeah, I see there is a huge interest to work co-op, and if you're interested, do contact Coach Marie, because currently we're having this course, and I'm also part of the students, and of 600 plus people sign up for this course. And as you can see, that a lot of people are very, very curious, and how to take the co-op spirits and create different kind of organization and to solve the problem of today. So we're moving on and to actually the last set of questions. Not actually the next set of questions, which is my favorite. It's about leadership. I would like to ask you, each of you, answer it within a minute. Who are you becoming when you're walking this journey right now?
So
On the chat, to answer
Jack, I am becoming a very collaborative person. That's what I'm becoming. Yeah.
You are always. So, yeah, I feel that the only way to redesign the world is to trust each other and to be aligned for a common mission. If we don't have a common mission, we will be driven by our own logo, our own ego, and all these things are so restrictive to our mission, and we become the obstacle to our own mission. So what I like to do is to tell people, forget about your company, forget about who you are humanity, and let's go together.
So who are you becoming, Jack? Just answer the question.
I'm becoming all of humanity.
Great.
Maybe link to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. You, please. Oh, chivalry is not dead. That is very sweet. I tell you what I'm becoming. I'm an extrovert, and it's probably not coming across in this screen, or maybe it is. And I've spent 14 weeks. I haven't left my suburb, and at the very beginning, I was finding this quite interesting and challenging. But what I'm becoming is very vocal about, as people, especially in Australia, we're starting to go back to whatever normal used to be, and I'm becoming very vocal to saying, stop talking about going back to what we wanted. We have had the biggest social experiment and an opportunity to not sit in cars for an hour, where an hour one way to work and an hour back is 2 hours where we don't see our children. We've had such, I mean, I can only talk for the experience of where I've worked, but I've had such opportunities to meet teams that I don't usually see, because we've been able to see them virtually and have the biggest high trust where we've been able to continue doing valuable work. So I've become this advocate for stop trying to create the past and go back to this thing. Let's use this opportunity to work out where we can have hybrid roles or we can have new ways. And let's not think that what we did was actually, well, we know it wasn't perfect, don't get me wrong. But the idea that going back to that, because I feel we missed this opportunity that we've been given as a culture, as a community. You know, one of the colleagues talked about shared experiences. This is the first time that rich and poor have experienced the same thing. COVID hasn't been blind to sickness and only affecting one or not. So we've had this, I mean, climate change is the same, but we've had this one time where we've all had a shared time in our lives, that if there was an opportunity to do something about that. So I suppose I'm becoming quite vocal in that and trying to ensure that we don't necessarily just revert, because I don't necessarily think that that's us making the most of the opportunities. Maybe I'm just getting old and vocal.
Wiser. Jose Marie, what are you becoming? 1 minute time.
Yeah, I was, before, there's one thing that usually Jack says that I think is great. He talks about feminine leadership. Feminine in the sense of actually enabling not your own reality, organization, even ego, but actually more enabling as a platform for others to actually to flourish. I think, I don't know, if this COVID in two ways is helping me a lot to move from a river to the sea, in terms that it's not anymore about, okay, which is your current, which is your river, but actually understanding much more the oneness that is about, okay, where are we watering together, you know? And in that sense, it's connecting. Today, I think at the same time, this crisis is, okay, we need to water, or we need to give sun to what is really matters. So I think this is a call for awareness to say, where are you bringing the water to? And I think in that sense, it needs to be much more collaborative with a wide variety of players. And at the same time, I think also, I don't know, in my personal case, I came again with this idea of digital. I think as social entrepreneurs and as entrepreneurs in general, the digital dimension is like an embodiment that we need to embrace fully, you know, unless we are going to be reaching. So it's not just about having so clear human, so clear your purpose and your values, but also today embracing technology to address and reach this watering to many more people is crucial to do it. No? So I mean, this learning mode, how to bring like these all digital platforms everywhere, how to ignite young people and myself and other people to embrace technology, but as Jessie was saying before, not with the sake of technology, but as an enabler to actually make a bigger transformation for watering other people. So, and then maybe one small story is the first time, thanks to the COVID, that although I have been a gardener all my life in terms of gardening trees, I have never been cultivating, you know. So actually in this COVID, we were locked down at home. We start with a small, I don't know how you call it in English, huerta, so a small garden with fruits. So I'm learning to cultivate watermelon and lettuce. I'm having my own lettuce now at home. So tomatoes is difficult. So I'm learning a lot from nature, you know, I'm much more closer to nature and learning. And I feel totally connection in the world as a social entrepreneur, as a gardener for humanity, as Jack was saying, with gardening my own tomatoes at home, you know.
That's wonderful. Who actually turned himself into a gardener in this whole COVID period, I would say. Yeah, I see several hands raising up. Yeah, wonderful. And I see that we're really running out of time. We have about 20-something minutes left, but I do want to leave this space to the audience and to ask your questions, because I see there are a lot of questions coming up. Before I turn to Erin, and I just want to ask you, each one of you, to address to the entrepreneurship, which is the whole theme of this week. It's a global entrepreneurship week. So what would you like to tell entrepreneurs, which we define as a change maker in a large organization, a corporates?
I can go.
Yeah, go.
I think change makers, I mean, it's fantastic. I think change making is a basic human right. It's a basic human necessity. I've been reading a lot of Buddhism these days. So in simplified Buddhism, they talk about 5 Buddha blockers, Buddha nature blockers. And the first Buddha nature blocker is self-doubt or fear. So change makers are people who don't have that Buddha nature blocker. So it's one of the best things anyone is doing, trying to be a change maker within their organization, outside their organization. It needs a lot of support. It needs a lot of personal strength. So you should constantly work with yourself. That's my advice to you as a change maker. Work with yourself. Don't lose hope. It's a tough job. It's not easy. And the simplest tool, I would say, to change making is be a good listener. You've got to have passion, because passion drives change making. But I believe that I could have done far more if earlier on, when I was younger, I didn't believe so much in myself. So I had huge ability to take risk. I had huge ability to just push ahead, and I was a very strong personality. But maybe if I had been a little more sort of, cooperative and worked with others and things like that, I could have reached my destination faster. I don't know. So, and these things, when you're young, you believe, go fast. I mean, go alone, go fast. That's the mantra, right? I'll do it by myself. And then with age, you realize, okay, maybe it's better we do it all together. So that's my tips to the change makers.
Beautiful.
I like to go there.
I think the next generation that are coming behind us, though, I feel are extremely, well, the ones that I work with have that. I agree with you, Neelam. There was this, maybe out of the 80s, that individual, want to be a high-performing individual versus a team of, a high-performing team. So I agree, but I noticed the young people that I have in my team are extremely collaborative, and I learned so much from them. And COVID has, in some ways, closed the gap between the generations because of them being so digitally enabled. I completely agree with you about listening more. We talk with our teams about, you have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, so you should double the listening, as opposed to, it's just an easy way to think about 2 ears, 1 mouth, double listen, less speaking. But the one thing from an entrepreneur perspective is, Jeanette's heard me talk about this. I've had really passionate entrepreneurs in the team that are like, we're going to make a change being in a big organization. I don't care if I get sacked because I'm going to do it. And I often say, you're actually going to make less of the change if you get sacked. I want you in the team because it's going to be harder for you on the outside to do that. So with that, I'm not saying don't be authentic and don't be yourself, because the research, having done a lot of research at the moment on wellbeing with resilience, and because of COVID, the closer you are to being who you are and not having to fake or be another persona in your work job to your home life, it actually makes you a stronger person. There is so much stress to pretending to be something in your work life, and then when you get home, you can be yourself. COVID has meant it's very hard to not be both, because the cat walks past, the children walk past, your husband, etc. So if you are some other dual personality, it's pretty tough. So there's even more stress. But so what I mean by that then as an entrepreneur is, if you are fortunate to at least be in a role or in an organization that they've hired you for being who you were at the interview, to say, I want to make a change, but this is who I am, that's awesome. But if you do want to actually impact and enact change, sometimes you need to at least learn the language of those that you need to make that change. I sit with 11,000 engineers. I'm a social science, fine arts, cinema studies, criminal lawyer by background. I am not an engineer, but I've learned to kind of tone down the extroverted, non-technical side of mine and use my entrepreneurial engineers to sometimes get the message across, so that I can get the message across. So I suppose as a tip or a trick for entrepreneurs is, you need to, in order to make change, be yourself, because it's hard and resilient, and you will impact your well-being if you have to fake it. But do understand that sometimes, I can't remember who said it, but use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. Learn the language, because we should be human first, and we need to be client or customer or what first. Use their language to help get to what you're trying to achieve. And I think that will make you even more, you will have more resilience and impact in the work that you do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Jackie, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that the world is too masculine. And that is why we have this winner and loser game. The masculine approach is to grab everything from everybody and be the winner. The world has to be more feminine. And I think companies would do very well to be more feminine. And I'm not talking about male or female. I'm talking about the philosophy of the mother. If the mother see the family is successful, she's very proud and very happy. And she doesn't say that all these people were successful because of me. She's just happy that people are successful. Now, if we all have the same philosophy and we want others to be successful, and if this becomes a natural culture of society, then we will not have losers. How can we play the game of winners and losers when the main game is to create losers? When we create winner, we have to create thousands and millions of losers. That's a stupid game. So what we want to do is to say to companies, be feminine. And a male can be feminine, and a female can also be masculine. When you see those CEOs in the companies who are female, they behave worse than men. So the important thing is to share, to care, to think of community, and we have to return to our human goodness. And this GDP thing, this winner takes all thing, all this masculine behavior, that's all wrong. And we have to change, because we can see it's all making a mess now. We see protests in America. It's not because of the Black Riot, it's because of the loss of opportunity. Okay.
Great. Rosa Marie.
Yeah, maybe from my side, I fully agree what the Bruce has shared, and I fully what Jack was saying. I would like to maybe go to a different direction in terms of, as entrepreneurs, what can we do? You know, maybe I will tell my personal story over these 4 months. What have I done as entrepreneur? Some of the insights. First, I think it's a time of confusion. There's a lot of noise internally in the organization. So maybe we need to be clear. So I think we need to cultivate ourselves to be trying to address clarity in the middle of confusion between all the noise that is happening. Second, I think that everyone, at least what I'm sensing, is in shock. So there is frozen, what to do, how to do, and what is coming. And in that sense, the biggest limitation I see for innovation is our mental models. So people now is very released in the mental models. So now is a very good moment to hack the system. You know, now is very good moment to act fast, to hack the system, because the limitations that before will take 1 year, 2 years, 5 years to propose some change. Now people is more vulnerable. So it's the moment to do it. Third, maybe connecting with what Jesse was saying, I think it's time for youth. We cannot play alone. We say in Spanish, ganas y canas, what means ganas means will and canas means gray hair. So we need to bring youth to play together with people with experience in every actions that we do, and working on tandem with youth. Fourth, I think is we need to be, so I think in some clear, in one hand, we need to be very clear on the purpose, what we're doing. So not activate actions that maybe they are superficial. So really be clear in the purpose, but then at the same time, we'll be being very fast and act. This, at least, I don't know, from my opinion, in these 4 months, I have been more active. I can have closed more MOUs, more agreements, more projects than most probably before. And the reason is because people is ready to see solutions. So it's a good moment for acting. And then maybe as an entrepreneur, I don't know how you are sensing as entrepreneurs, but also with all of this, it's very common to feel with a big burden all the time. Also, JC was talking about the well-being. Myself, I try to do surfing. So I think that we need to change this big burden to adventure. We need to move to adventure. Every day is a new wave. Every day we can surf the wave or we can fall down. If we fall down, we forgive ourselves and we are ready for the adventure of the next day. You know, during this COVID, every morning in the shower, I take the tradition. So yesterday, how many times I fail in some actions, I forgive myself and then start a new day. Because otherwise, unconsciously, you are dragging yourself too much in that sense of the actions. No? And maybe for me became more and more clear as entrepreneur that success is not about not falling down from the board, but standing up again and again every time you realize you fall down, and always doing it with adventure feeling. So maybe this image of a wave, I will invite each one of you in your day-to-day life to really connect with this adventure feeling of the wave more than actually the big load of responsibility that we have. I don't know, these are the ways that I'm trying to play these days as entrepreneur. And maybe it can be of some inspiration or at least some ideas for the rest.
Beautiful. I love my panelists, and you ask for one advice, you get 7. So with this, I will actually hand over to Erin, and we still have some time, so maybe we can pick some questions from our lovely audience, and it will be a very difficult task because I see there's a long list. Erin, please help me.
Yeah, thank you. We've had great conversations and sharing of information from our panelists. I'm just going to flick through here because we've also started to ask the questions of our participants. What were your key takeaways from today's session, and what's one immediate action that you're going to take? There was a question that Jack was able to answer for Shaul. And are there other sustainable economic models adopted in small communities, if not in other countries?
I think the latest one is about how do you see education transforming the cooperative for prospect of developing countries? Maybe Neelam will know.
Yeah.
Neelam will be best on this, no? Developing country.
I mean,
how
do you see the education industry transforming their perspective in developing economy?
So how will education transform in developing economies, right? Is that it?
From a cooperative perspective.
Oh, so, I mean, to be very positive, we had started a bunch of courses in a design institute. It was a Bachelor of Vocation in Creative Manufacturing. It is a Master's in Impact Entrepreneurship. And it's a PhD in Impact Entrepreneurship. And strangely enough, the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka called a meeting and said he wants these courses run in 3 colleges, 3 universities in Bangalore. So yes, it looks like COVID has impacted even the way the higher education system. The higher education system is easier to kind of mold in India. It's the normal 4 to 12 standard that is very, very, very difficult to touch. And I think that's a tragedy, because a lot of killing of creativity, a lot of regenerative thought is killed by your traditional education systems. I don't want to talk like Pink Floyd now, but anyway, yeah. So it's okay. So yes, we are seeing positive things happening, and at state level. So India, as you know, has states and national government. To do anything with the national government is very difficult. So if you start doing it in a few states, you see, I mean, we can see some stuff emerging. Yeah.
Okay. I actually see from Mage, he's interested in hearing views from panel about which jobs will feature post-COVID. And decent jobs are great, but we're also facing a lot of fear about where work is going and impact on income. Because we talk about a lot of you know, our idealism, about what decent job is, but real people are losing their real job. And what can we do about it?
From my side, maybe I can share one project that we are working is on we call generators. So employment and companies generator for this new post-COVID era. It's about platform digital cooperatives in terms of actually enabling. Because what we have seen is that the big winners of this COVID is the big players on platform businesses. But we cannot accept, because in platform business, sadly, there is no decent job. Only Amazon this May has closed this activity of paying $2 per hour per worker. So I think that this platform business, yes, we need to address. I think a lot of jobs will be based there. But then the idea is that we need to provide new solutions for this sort of digital platform jobs, you know. Also for the vendors, we have been talking also with Jack. One of the reasons there is like all the suppliers who are in the vendors, the platform businesses is charging around 30% commission. With this, it's not possible to actually address that they will be able to pay decent jobs for the people. So I think this idea of how to create new sources of jobs linked to the platform businesses, I think is a huge opportunity that we have there. In the case of economy, for example, in Spain also will be linked to this, as maybe Milan was saying before, for the moving to a much more circular economy, and then really like maybe in this new wave of actually solutions for climate. I think this will be like a wave of actually not construction, but actually re-understanding our way of the industry is operating in that sense, will be also a great source of jobs. But I believe that one of our biggest responsibility, as you were saying, Jan, is exactly on this. You know, we need to create jobs, and we need to create massively jobs. Otherwise, the situation will be into a drama, as we are seeing maybe in these days in the US. No? And I would say in these digital platform businesses, we can have a great opportunity, but maybe doing in a different principles than the one we have seen so far. It's not about sharing economy, but participatory economy. Okay,
great. I think we're running out of time. There are 10 minutes left, and I think Erin has put our question there. I will repeat it one more time. What will be your key takeaway from this session? And what will be your immediate action after this session? And meanwhile, I'm gonna actually post the QR code of this group that we're creating for a follow-up conversation. And so we're setting up a League of Entrepreneur community in Singapore. And if anybody who wanted to be part of this conversation, who are interested in the whole platform model of creating jobs, who wanted to really just ponder on and see how to change this whole situation of an employment issue from a corporate corporate point of view, please join us, and we're going to actually have a much more initiative to address this issue, to talk about it, and to really build a prototype and build a community to solve this problem together. So if you're interested, just scan the QR code and join our community. So that I'm going to actually hand over to Erin, and before that, and I want to thank all my amazing panelists for this very, very wonderful conversation we had together. And I want to thank the audience for your very enthusiastic comments and questions. And Erin, over to you. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I've been busy bossing everyone behind the scenes tonight that I needed to look in the mirror. I just wanted to say a very big thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening, to our fabulous panelists and the great conversations, exploring different models, both in business and mental models, as well as the action and the energy that we need to think differently and not just go back to a new normal. How do we ride the wave and look forward and be kind to ourselves and each other, so that we can create the change that we need, not only for our generation, but those that come after us. What I also would like to do is to acknowledge a couple of people behind the scene. We've got I and Vincent and Marcus, who have done a fabulous job to help us bring this to life, as well as our fabulous team at the League of Entrepreneurs, Yolana, Tessa, and Milana, for being a really good backup in the end.
And Jeanette, yeah, good audience.
And Jeanette, she's been a fabulous guardian this evening. Again, if you want to keep continuing the conversation, particularly around this subject, but if you're local in Singapore or across APAC, please click on the link and join the WhatsApp group or the QR code. Or if you're not a member of the League of Entrepreneurs, join us at leagueoфentrepreneurs.com, and we'd love to bring you with, welcome you with open arms into our community and continue this learning experience going forward. So if there's nothing from anyone else, I just want to say a really big thank you. Have a lovely evening. And for those that are continuing on to the next session, it's been a great week, part of Global Entrepreneurs Week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I just want to say that we only have one life, and there's not many days left in this life. So go do the things you think is meaningful to you. Don't waste time trying to make more money.
Yes.
Find your purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Take care.
Great session.
Great session.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.